Hello everyone, welcome to this live radio show made in the framework of the project Digital Intersection. Before we start, I would like to thank our partners in this. So first, the Biennale Chroniques, la Biennale des Imaginaires Numériques, Radio Grenouille, and la Friche Belle de Mai and the restaurant Grandable that is allowing us to host this radio show today. So I'm here with a couple of friends and colleagues, but before we delve in and I present you the lovely panel we have today, I would like to let you know what we are talking about, what we'll be talking about for the next hour or so. So first, I would like to introduce Stereolux, which is a Nantes-based association. And I would like to talk about Stereolux because they are very well known in France. They have been managing 2 venues and one festival, the festival Scopitone, which has been held since 2002. And I'm talking about them because on December 18, 2024, they published an open letter in which they express their regret over the region's decision to, and I quote, end all partnership with our association. Due to this political choice, the association Stereolux has lost 76,000 euros in public funds, which is pretty huge for a cultural festival. And of course, they're not the only one in the region who has been affected by this political choice. In fact, in the region where Stereolux is based, so Pays de la Loire region, over 100 associations has been affected by this situation. If we want to look at this with an even broad perspective, this is not only in Pays de la Loire, this is not only in France, this is a European problem. In France, for example, in 2024, the budget for culture was slashed by more than 200 million euros, and in 2025, this trend is expected to keep doing this way. The budget is gonna crush and crush, and it's the same in the rest of Europe. The political context is uncertain, and the public funding is unstable. And while for sure we shouldn't accept the situation with our arms crossed, finding alternative sources of income has now become a necessity, if not a matter of survival. And this is where this lovely panel comes in, because since 2022, Chroniques and 4 European partners, so we have Container in Croatia, Signal in Czech Republic, Kik in Belgium, and the Catalyst in Germany, we have been exploring and experimenting with ways to ensure our economic resilience through the project Digital Intersection. And we are really not afraid to say the scary words: profitability and business models. So today we would like to delve into what models, what safeguards, and how can we support this economic sustainability, having in mind also ecological and human sustainability. And what if all this was actually a good idea? So we'll discuss this topic with AC Coppens, founder of the Catalyst, Mario Kunovsky, head of international projects at Signal, the artist Chloé Rutzerveld, whose work you can admire at the Biennale des Imaginaires Numériques, and Élodie Breut, director of AMI and in charge of platform Dynamo. I will be hosting this session. I am Ilaria Bondavalli, head of European projects at Chroniques. So before we start, I'm going to ask you to quickly present yourself and your background. What's your story? AC, if you want to start.
Okay, I can start first. Hello, everyone. My name is AC Coppens. I'm the founder of the Catalyst, as Ilaria said. We are a boutique agency working at the very crossing of innovative technology and creative content. That's why we're very much working already with players between the two in this hybrid zone. We are business consultants and conference curators.
So my name is Chloé Rutzerveld. I'm a designer from the Netherlands, and I combine science, technology, and design to think about new ways of food production and consumption. And that can turn into an interactive installation or prototypes or interactive sessions as a dinner, for example, to really communicate with people like what might happen in the future with new food production techniques and new raw materials. Yeah.
Hello, my name is Mario Kunovsky, and I am taking care of international projects at Signal in Prague. Signal is a festival focused mainly on digital art and creative culture, as we like to call ourselves. It's mostly a public festival which presents different kinds of art forms, but mostly digital. And it's grown to be actually one of the largest cultural events in the Czech Republic and also one of the largest events of this kind in whole Europe.
Hello, my name is Élodie Breut. I'm the director of AMI. Our organization is one of the founders of La Friche Belle de Mai. It's important to mention. We are dedicated to support artists in the music field, but not only, and SMEs in the field of CCI. We deliver a training program, consulting, etc., etc. We have 6 rehearsal studios also here in La Friche Belle de Mai. And we also produce events, one dedicated to urban culture called the Hip Hop Society, and another one called Gestes, dedicated to experimental approach in music and pluridisciplinary creation.
All right, thank you so much. So, first bit of this discussion, it's going to be about experimentations. In the framework of the Digital Intersection project, we have been experimenting, as I said, with new business models, innovation, and trying to tackle economic sustainability and resilience. And we did that, the partners, through local pilot projects. So since, Mario, you're here today, you will be able to let us know what does this local pilot look for Signal. But maybe I can just spend a couple of words on the other partners' local pilots before I give you the floor. So for Chroniques, this looked like the MIN, so le marché des imaginaires numériques, the market of digital imaginaries, which was thought as basically an agora for meeting people you wouldn't actually meet in the day-to-day life, and to create transdisciplinary synergies in between businesses and culture, heritage, and digital. So really create this kind of transsectorial bridges. Then we have KIK in Namur, so in Belgium, which has been experimenting with a members club to finance their new venue, because they have opened, I mean, we all know Festival KIK as this big institution, but they also opened a venue, Le Pavillon, which is an exhibition venue, and they needed basically new ways to finance it. So one way has been found is this VIP members club. And then we have Container. If we also talk about new venues, Container in Croatia, they opened this new venue of theirs in Zagreb, and they have been renting it to corporate, to different kind of clients, so outside of the cultural sector, to really give this new place a multi-purpose, to make a multi-purpose place, which Jadrana, who is responsible for this in the Container team, said it's really, really exciting to have different formats and different people next to an exhibition place. Mario, what have you done in Signal?
So for the Signal, maybe for the context, as I mentioned in the beginning, Signal started off as a public event. 13 years ago, we presented mostly large-scale art installations, video mappings, and stuff like that freely to the public. But over the years, the festival got so popular that every year we welcomed a couple of 100,000 visitors over the course of 4 days. So it's a lot of people. And after some time, we started to think about how we should approach this in order to be able to, let's say, explore different kinds of locations and various art forms that cannot handle this amount of crowds. We wanted to explore the gallery spaces, we wanted to explore indoor locations and so on. So we came up with an idea that we would create a gallery zone, a specific part of the festival which would be available only after buying a ticket. And at first, this was mostly meant really as a regulation of the crowds that are coming to the festival. But for the DIS project, we actually decided to focus on this gallery zone and try to convert it to a new revenue stream, basically. So for the first time, thanks to this project, we were able to do a really in-depth analysis of our visitors, of the customer behavior, and to come up with the data for the first time based on which we can do some or we can take some new measures, because until now we were doing everything kind of organically, just doing like tryings, but not everything really worked out. So this is the first time that we have actual data. The measures will be taken only during 2025, but we have already discovered very interesting facts, and I believe that these will be useful not only for us, but we really believe that these are applicable for different kinds of organizations or festivals who are dealing with the similar problems than us. Some of the things that we already found is that, for example, 50% of the people, they aren't aware of the gallery zone, which was shocking for us because the gallery zone has been on for many years, and we just discovered that most of the people don't even know it exists. Then we also found out that the retention rate is crazy. It's only 5% people who actually come back to buy tickets every year. So now we know that we probably should come up with something like a loyalty program or to find some motivation how to bring the people back. One of the interesting facts is also sustainability and ecology, not only in terms that we want to be ecological and sustainable for the planet and for the good sake of everybody, but we also learned that audience is more likely by 30% to buy a ticket if the festival is aligned with these green policies and ecological. So now we learned that it's not only for a good cause, but also it can be economical reason to be more ecological in your approach. So it's already many useful facts that we know now, and we will be happy to share them with other organizations for the future.
Thank you so much. And actually, ecology was one of the pillars of the project. We have been discussing sustainability in terms of green, in terms of HR, in terms of budget, for sure. And before delving into the local pilot project, we actually tried to develop this common project for all the partners, where we actually wanted to have this sort of platform to distribute artworks that were already being produced or co-produced by the partners of the project, which meant basically not wasting or using other resources, other time, other money to produce other artworks. One of the problems was that we wanted to open this catalog, let's say, to the outside of the cultural sector, but corporates doesn't want already seen artworks. You want ad hoc artworks. You want ad hoc pieces for your events. And another problem, and here comes the bad word, was profitability. Because with we've spent a lot of time trying to see if this model was profitable, and we couldn't find a way for making some revenue streams out of it without overcharging the teams and the HR being a very, very important point for us. Since we are on profitability, is it a dirty word? Can we be sure about that? And I see a turn to you, because you said, I would like to hear what's your point of everyone's, but I turn first to AC, because you said you consider yourself the bad business people of the consortium. And in the survey, you conducted a survey where you interviewed over 100 players in the cultural world across Europe and beyond. What's the general sentiment? What can you tell us about that?
Well, first of all, it's not that we consider ourselves being the bad guys, right? We are told to be the bad guys because, the anecdote was that as I was doing the survey and I was going through a couple of really nice galleries, really very fancy galleries in Montreal. And I remember coming in and saying, like, hey, I would love to have an interview and discuss with you, like, what's your business model and how do you do this? And then the girl looks at me and she's like, did you say business? You want to make me puke? And I'm like, okay, this is a great start into the survey. And yeah, so it's not that we think that business is dirty or profitability is dirty, but I think that if we really have a look at the figures, the thing is, there is a sort of understanding that we are here for the art and not for the money. But actually, it would be really nice if we could live out of what we do and where we're passionate for it. So there is this ambivalence, to speak. And but for many different art organizations and digital arts organizations, this notion of a business or business model or money stands against this mission that they have, where they say, well, you know, art is something different. It's not a product. It's not something that we are creating to answer to a specific need, like a product or a service. So it is something that is not working with the same rules, right? It's not compatible with business. So this is the mindset that we have been seeing a lot of times during the survey. And if we really have a look, there are two things I want to say. First, in terms of figures, if we have a look, there are a lot of digital arts institutions that don't sell anything. Some of them sell tickets, but it's 1/3 of them, based on the research we did. And hardly 50 are receiving fees for their activities. And over 60% or 60% don't sell or market anything. So I totally understand the point of view and the mindset. We don't sell anything. And I want to say, we did also a lot in Europe. And sometimes we forget that in Europe, we are in a very privileged position. There is public funding. And yes, it's becoming less and less, and we have to find a way. So this is the question. So going back to your original question, yeah, maybe it was a dirty world. But now we really have to think to make it clean.
Thank you, AC. Chloé, what's your perspective? What is your relationship with business and profitability, you being an artist and a designer? At what point does profitability comes into your practice, and how are you equipped to deal with it?
Yeah, so I think it's pretty simple. Making new work costs time, a lot of energy, effort, and money. So without money and an income, you cannot work as an artist, because you need a place to make your work. The work itself takes a lot of money, the research. So it's ridiculous to not get paid for the work that you do. So yes, you can depend on public funding, but then you are spending also a lot of time writing requests, writing papers, writing other kind of things that you don't want to be doing as an artist. So yeah, we try to not be dependent on these kinds of income. And before the pandemic, most of my income as a studio or as an artist or designer came from giving lectures, doing workshops, and a lot of public things. But it turned out it wasn't sustainable at all, because there were no public events, so I had no income at all. So during that time I thought, okay, so apparently the work I make is interesting enough to be shown at musea or at interactive venues or where people gather, but then why are they not paying for my work, but only for sort of the services around it? So how can we profit more from the actual work itself? So one thing I started doing was collaborating with other artists. For example, with Culinaire Cellulaire, I worked with Rick and Adriaan van Veldhuizen from Organism Studios to create a stronger team with more capabilities or more skills. So you are a more rounded team, and you can do many more things together as a team than I could do by myself. Another thing is find a theme or a subject that appeals to a bigger public. So food is interesting for a lot of people, but for example, the work Culinaire Cellulaire here at the Biennale focuses on cellular agriculture. So it's a new way of like a food production technology that is both interesting from a technological perspective, from a health perspective, from the scientific perspective, from the culinary sector, but also for a general public who wants to learn about these new ways of food production or the future of food. So for us, that means that we don't only we are not depending on the cultural sector to show our work. Because most of the income is actually from renting our work or showing our work at conferences, from like scientific conferences, or like a big fair about like cuisine, or like a food fair or something like that, because often they have more money. So it's like in the health sector, in like the technology sector, in the science sector. So, for example, when we place our installation there for 2 days, it's almost the exact same amount that that we can ask in a cultural institution for half a year or a year. So we just change the way that we produce the work, that it appeals to a bigger audience, but also like ages. So it's for young, because it's very like a very visual and interactive installation. So it's for young people, it's for old people, it's for specialists, so that are really working with the subject on hand, but also for a general audience. And because if you don't want to go in depth into the process of cellular agriculture, you can just create a very nice future dish based on cells, and every step is highly visual, and then your future dish appears in a holographic display. So it's interesting for a lot of people and sectors, and I think that makes it more profitable.
Yeah, for sure, because if you take the audience already in mind when you are designing and thinking about the artwork, for sure it makes it easier then to understand how you can pardon my French, use the artwork, and I'm using the quotation marks here, how you're going to be able to, I'm going to be able to show it only in museums, am I going to be able to show it at science fair, as you said?
Because it's not just art or not just design.
Yeah.
We basically, it's also educational, so it's more of a very fun and interactive way of science communication as well. So in that sense, you also bring something. It's not just that it's fun or interesting or looks amazing. No, it's also the content. It's really based on facts and research. We spoke to a lot of scientists, a lot of people in the industry, but then we use the design thinking or the art side of our practices to bring something new to the table, something that doesn't exist, but can both inspire scientists and experts in the field to think in a different way, from a different point of view, but also just bring something that is already happening for 10 years to the general public, because often these kind of topics, they stay in this bubble of science, and they don't come to the regular audience or youngsters with their grandparents. And now we make it accessible for also this group of people.
Thank you. And it's really interesting what you say, and about the fact of different publics, different minds, innovative things. I'm turning to you, Élodie, because you manage the platform Dynamo, so you must see a bunch of things. Is the new generation more open to innovation, to business and culture? What are the trends?
I just would like to introduce something before. Our incubator was launched 15 years ago. We are an organization dedicated to public interests in arts. When we start to discuss with our financial supports, we would like to launch an incubator dedicated to support SMEs, enterprise. We start to say dirty things in the head of a lot of people. And they don't understand why we would like to do this, why we would like to create an incubator for SMEs in the cultural field. The base of the idea is we see how it means organization at the local level, especially in the music field of music, because the artists miss an ecosystem to support their activity locally. So they go to Paris and work with private company to develop career, especially global industry. So it was really hard to convince our support to be, how can I say, able to support economic model, new economic model. And we start to work on this through the European funds, especially Interreg Med programs. And we observe in the frame of big partnerships how we can create new economic model in culture. It was interesting to mention that because we are supposed to be in the public interest and we are completely conscious of the needs about this. Concerning our SMEs, they are completely in this, how can I say, reality. So they know that the subsidies is a model, but it starts to be a lower opportunities for them, and they also want to be more independent to the political approach. So they try to create a new economic model, even if they want to stay in the public interest. So to commercialize contents, for example, media who commercial contents, and finally put the benefits to produce artists. It's kind of the new model they want to experiment, and we are here to support them. And one of the first training program we propose to the new SMEs is to work on business model and financial issues. So they are ready. For certain profile, it's more difficult because there are artists and entrepreneurs in the meantime. So sometimes it's difficult, but you mentioned that it's possible. And it's also a guarantee of their independence, and they are really attached about this.
Okay, so there's no reluctance. They don't say no.
No, they want to work on a hybrid model. They are okay that they can have some subsidies, but they want to also be independent to produce their own artistic and creative contents.
And how would they gain their independence? I mean, is it because they are developing new services? Is it because they are partnering up with businesses?
Because to receive subsidies is to be able to answer to cahier des charges in a frame decided by the politics, and the new generation are a bit afraid about this, especially in urban culture, because there are also other cultural issues. They are not necessarily in confidence with the political approach. So they want to be entrepreneurs by themselves. They want to be boss of their own business. So they are completely okay about this. And they're looking for support to create enterprise. And we work with a profile who want to buy the association, so stay in the public interest. And you can be, how can you say the dirty word?
The dirty word, yeah.
Even if you are an association, because you have to pay your salary, it's not a bad word. But the other want to make some profits. That's a new generation also of.
It's good to hear. It's very good
to hear. It's a question because we are also lucky to have all these kind of supports. But it's good to hear because they are okay to be confronted to the reality of the economy. In another sense, capitalist worlds It's also sometimes without rules. And yes, we work a lot in our incubator to implement our entrepreneurs concerning transition, social transition, ecological transition. So we work more on the model of social and solidarity economy, but it's still economy.
Yeah, for sure, yeah. And you said the word capitalism, because Mario, I'm turning to you. The study that AC and the Catalyst produced mentioned at some point the idea of shifting from business model to sustainability model or valuation model. Exactly, because if we want to, okay, we say that capitalism is a bad word, profitability is a bad word, we don't want to say that. Let's shift to a more cultural accepted, let's say, democratic word, valuation model. What's your thought about that?
Well, for Signal, it's very simple. We had to come up with some plan how to actually be able to survive, because from the beginning we knew that public fundings are just not enough. So that's why we just couldn't be afraid of the word profitable and of being able to make money, because otherwise we wouldn't be here, and the event, the whole organization wouldn't exist. So it wasn't a matter of choice for us, basically. And I also think that it's also about how you approach this, because of course, if you focus on being profitable or making money just for the sake of making money, that's bad, of course. But on the other hand, what we are trying to do is to invest and basically create and support the whole ecosystem. The fact that we are able to collaborate with private sponsors, it actually enables us to produce more artworks. In our case, to be just for an example, because of this, we became the largest producer of new artworks in the Czech Republic. We as a private organization, and this was only possible because we were able to monetize some part of our activities. This also enables us to pay fair fees to the artists, which also supports the whole ecosystem. So yes, sometimes we hear some comments that we are being commercial, but on the other hand, without it, we wouldn't be able to create and support this whole ecosystem. So I really think it's about the approach, and it's about how you reinvest the money and how you think about this whole process as a complex thing, because really just to make profit for the profit, that wouldn't be good for sure. But there are ways how to make it in a good way.
For sure, thank you. So if I sum what we've said up, profitability logic is not in the DNA of cultural organizations. That's for sure. Even so, we are doing quite well. I put myself in the group. We're doing quite well. We are resilient, and we are even well equipped to facing crisis. For example, the lockdown, COVID-19, did not impact cultural organization too hard, given some studies that are available online. And actually, from the report that the Catalyst produced, after the lockdown, cultural organizations claim to have a strong network of partners and collaborators of trust, and to be able to use crisis as an opportunity for sustainable transformation. That says a lot. I really like that even when you face a crisis, like a pandemic, everything shuts down, there's no money whatsoever. For culture, it's very, very little. First thing that comes to mind is we have a network, we have collaborators, there's an ecosystem that supports us, and that's really good. AC, I come back to you because we asked which monetization methods cultural organization were already experimenting with through the report. And actually, it's quite a lot. And there was also another question kind of related to that. The question was, what are the goals for the next 5 years? What are you working on? What are your insights on that?
So, yes, I mean, first of all, I want to say we got the results of 60 plus digital art institutions. And we asked actually 300 or 400, so it means that there was some kind of cautiousness about like, we don't want to talk about money, we don't want to talk about experimentation, we want to say so much about that. But the ones who answered were really on it. And they were really experimenting with a lot, as you were saying. I just want to mention maybe 10 that are interesting, that we found interesting, and we were actually also a little bit like, okay, that's what they call experimentation. Like cooperation with private companies was something which was coming up. Patrons Club, which is a way, of course, a nice collaboration to get funding. Sponsorship, which is a classic. I mean, it's not that I find something which is super innovative, but some of them didn't do it before. So it's okay, and I respect that. So there was also like setting a festival for the first time, or experimenting with video on demand, which was also directly coming from the pandemics, that's for sure. Also, the fact to embed digital art in museums was something which was coming up. Co-producing, or also getting a permanent art space. That was also after the pandemics, like, to have your own place and do something, and so like get some money out of that. IP licensing was also evoked, and consulting, like, hey, when you know how to curate, when you know about digital arts, that you wanted to have also your knowledge being monetized. So that's what they said for your first question. For your second question, the goals they said they had for the next 5 years, I'm going to tell you the favorite answer I got. I really love that one. Pay myself.
That's good.
Hire 5 people, have 5 projects done, and have 5 to go. And it was really like a very nice way to say, like, I don't need to scale like crazy. Just give me something where I can see what's happening, and then I would move on. Otherwise, it was a lot of goals which were really based on the values. Like, for example, value our content, value our artists, have a nice connection with them was really super important. Also, something that was coming also like keeping a real and strong artistic direction. So something which is really like, hey, let us do the job we need to do. Right, and I like that very much. Otherwise, of course, the independence from public funding was said a couple of times as a goal. Being also able to create own programs, maybe in-house, maybe produce in-house instead of asking people, service providing, to produce was something that they wanted to do. So this feeling of getting independent was really like very sharp, so to speak. And do programs in space that you manage. Maybe I said it already, but yeah. And also we found grow more sustainably. And I understood it was not only economically, but it was meant with socially, with the team. Like growing, yes, but not at the price of the employees or the people working in freelance with us. And also being more careful of the environment was definitely something that we had.
All right, thank you. That's definitely something to think about. And I mean, we've seen your answers, we've seen your insight. We've briefly looked at the pilot projects from the consortium, but keep on wondering: are there any models elsewhere that we can draw inspiration from? For culture, I mean, yes, Élodie, you told about the businesses. I'm sorry, that you incubate. That they want to be entrepreneurs, they want to be the boss of themselves, they want to be independent. But if I am a cultural organization, who do I look up to? Are there any cultural organizations that have a solid financial track record that do not rely? Maybe do not, it's a bit too much, but do not rely too much on public funds. For example, I know you mentioned the Barbican Immersive.
Yes, the Barbican Immersive is one of the examples. We met them in Namur at the Kick Festival. It was really a great conversation. I think they are quite successful by combining, on the one hand, revenue streams such as ticketing and touring, on the one hand, and also co-production. Really, touring is at the core of their business model, meaning that they would pick something like 5 exhibitions at some point, and they would tour internationally for 3 to 5 years. And the ticketing behind this is something that is really like carrying them really nicely. And they said that the fact that if they were more independent from public funding, they had the feeling they were more free to be creative, to do what they want, right? So this is, of course, I mean, you're dependent, or you're independent, right? I mean, there's nothing in between really. They could be a little bit dependent, but so it's interesting because they really like checked quite a few things, and they didn't want to have this kind of structure with grant funding and have the impact statements and all the administrative work and etc. So it was also a will and a wish to get rid of this, and I think they did a really good work. So they didn't want to have these limits, so to speak. So I think it's something that you can look up to. This is one of the examples. There is a lot of experiments that we have in the report that you can have a look at. Maybe we can also go back to it a little bit later in the conversation to see like what sort of new business model we could see. But Barbican, as an example, is a really good one.
Yeah, thank you. And Élodie, among your incubated projects or in your monitoring, is there anything inventive or innovative you can talk about?
You mean about new economic model? Or?
Yeah, exactly.
I guess there is also the question of cooperation and mutualization. When I talk about independence, it's also to be independent to the global industry. And when we work to support new SMEs, it's also to guarantee the diversity, cultural diversity, of course. And the collaboration between small organizations, it's also a new model to share competencies, skills, time, markets, opportunities, and answer together to needs or opportunities. If we talk about, for example, about the sponsorship or the work with brands. We are more and more in the model of Anglo-Saxon countries, so a lot of new organizations are able to work with brands. For example, in music, we have the model of, how can I say, work with product and include products
like sponsorships?
Yeah, but for example, in a web video clip,
yeah, okay.
You use some song, and it's also really related to the model of the social media. But it's also questioning for them because they don't want to be only adverts organization, but so. Yes, they build collective strategy in, how can I say, the diversity of their skills. For example, an agency of artists who work with a media and communication agency to find the direct address to the audience. You talk about this a lot. To cut the intermediary between their product and the consumer, and also to involve consumer in the artistic produce. So yes, it's really inspired by the model of the social network. But the question is, where is the economic regulation about this? When we think about the other rights, how the contents diffuse on the social network are really in the frame of the protection of the artist and artistic content. It's a big issue right now.
And how to deal if, an artist comes to work with a very, very big sponsor because it was a good deal. How do you deal with, is it a good partner? Are my values aligned with theirs? Because you need to ask yourself this question.
Of course, and they're looking forward to work with the brand who are involved in sustainability approach, sustainability projects, defend values, the same values. The question of the values is really important also in the collaboration between independent cultural organization and brands. Sometimes it could be greenwashing or stuff like this. So. Yes, they are focused on this. And it's also, if we analyze the collaboration between music and fashion, they are also grown at the same time. They decide to create association with a new fashion brand and start to grown up together. So it's also a model.
Okay. And Chloé, does this resonate with you? Have you ever thought about working with a big sponsor because it was a good deal for you?
Well, maybe not like sponsors. I think
Like a big company, for example.
You mean like a company or something?
Yeah.
Yeah, but indeed only if their values align, and if we can really do something together. So I'm not really a big fan of somebody saying, here, you have money, do whatever you want with it. I mean, this seems very weird, but I value if they care. So if they want the vision or the ideas from a design or a art perspective, to really do something with it as well, so that it's more integrated and not, okay, it's an exchange of information or money or tools, but really a collaboration. So that is something that I find important. And I think that also I heard it a couple of times, for example, from you, you said a lot of like keeping things in-house or keeping the production by yourself, or becoming more independent. And I think that is something also interesting for artists, to do more things, maybe also the boring things yourself. But also I think the question should be, I don't think making money or profiting from the work you do is a dirty word or something bad. I think if you are an artist or a designer and you can't get by, so you're really only depending on public funding or other kinds of funding or sponsorship, then I would really question the value of my work or what I'm doing. So am I doing something people actually want to see, actually can use, actually, like, why should this be in the world? And sometimes if I look at art or design, or doesn't matter, I question, what is it? Like, what am I looking at? For who is this interesting? What do you want to say? It's super unclear. I only have question marks. And there is this whole spectrum of art and what is design. And of course, it's a matter of taste. But I think we can talk about this for a week. I think what needs to be said is some things are unnecessary. And I'm an artist myself, but some things I'm like, what is this? And then I don't find it questionable that this artist or designer in question can get by. Of course, what am I looking at? And maybe this is a very critical point, because you cannot tell what is art, what isn't art. But what I find is that for us it's, and it's not that we are earning like, I don't know, like so much money that we don't know what to do with it, but we can sustain ourselves because we try to make something or do something or think about something that has value on its own. And it doesn't matter to what, for what company or sector or people, we always try to add value. And I think that is something really important. And then it doesn't matter if you're selling a product or a service or your ideas, you know. It can also just be a different perspective. But, well, so, yeah, maybe I'm very critical about this or very pragmatic. But I really think if you are a creative and you're struggling, rethink your work. I think it's as simple as that, because otherwise it can also just be a hobby. Yeah, so maybe, yeah, it's...
No, yeah. I see your point.
There is already so much stuff out there. And in this world, we're talking about sustainability and about societal issues. Art can be also a cause of unsustainable things, you know? So, yeah, I think we can talk about it forever. I think some are critical points we should also address.
Élodie, you were nodding a
I
lot.
would like to react because when you talk about values and collaboration with brand, etc., it's also for most of the SMEs we work with is the idea to defend a new model of society, and for example, association, try to work in association with private company which work in short circuits. We share exactly the same value, but also the same vision of how we are supposed to live right now in this earth. And it's also politic, sometimes, the collaboration between organization and... Sorry, okay, sorry. Yes, but it's not the only economic model, of course, and hopefully. The direct relation with citizen is also really important experience for our SMEs to try to involve the citizens at the beginning of the art production, for example, how to also including action of transmission, art education, etc., etc., but direct to the consumer. We work on a model during our last European project based on the agriculture process. It's called AMAP. So it's a direct link between the producer and the consumer. And the consumer buy a basket of fruits and vegetables without know what is inside, and directly bio, of course, but also related to the season. So this kind of model was experimented in a rural space in Italy, and the citizen buy a basket of cultural and artistic contents directly produced locally and without know what is inside. They can have a ticket to see theater pieces, etc., etc. So
It's very interesting. It's sort of like blind merchandising.
exactly. But with the idea to all the contents are locally produced, and yes.
And what about merchandise? Because if you look at the music industry, for example, I mean, I could not maybe afford a painting, but I may be able to afford a print. So what if is this a model we can look up to? Chloé, what do you think about it?
Yeah, I think it's interesting. It's very accessible. To be honest, I haven't opened an Etsy shop or done something like that to myself yet. Also because often it's more about the thought process and thinking about future scenarios, research. So it's based on facts, but then thinking what might happen. So it was always difficult, but now I did embrace my art side a bit more. So I also did a new course in prosthetics and realistic model making. So now it could be interesting to make smaller versions of the actual prototypes that are somewhere, or I think merchandise could be interesting, or copies of digital parts.
Or NFTs.
Well,
that's the other word that everyone had on their mouth at some point. And NFTs was a big part of the study that the Catalyst conducted in between Metaverse and Web3 talk, which were trends at some point. Now it seems like they have fallen out of fashion completely. But at some point, actually, the cultural sector did seem to act more in a commercial interest, to have more a commercial interest. What can we learn about this, AC?
Well, first of all, I think that, yes, indeed, as we were researching back in 2020, well, we were coming from 2021, 2022, this was a bit like high in demand. And then suddenly it like went over the mountain, like, woo, steep descent. But I wouldn't say that blockchain is dead, for example. So we say a lot about NFTs, and yes, it's good or it's bad, or it was great, it was not great. I don't care. I'm just looking at the technology which is behind, and I think it's super interesting to still explore. You know, the idea of a technology which is enabling the value chain to be kept online, on rail, in real time is super interesting. So I wouldn't say it's completely dead, but I think it's interesting to maybe look into new models. But you know, I wouldn't like to talk only about the NFT stuff, because yes, we talked. You're totally right. We talked a lot about metaverse and etc. But what was behind this was really this will also to experiment, experiment actually in a way to try new things and to be on top of trends and to say like, okay, we have this now, we have this technology now. So what can we do out of it? Another thing is also that. The metaverse is also said to be dead, but the metaverse is far away to be dead. It is also finding its niche right now. And I don't think that digital art is so far away from it. So it will be interesting also to see what's happening with the new digital avatars that we have coming up and digital humans and etc. So it's taking a new form. It's always in evolution. So I think it's still interesting. Otherwise, what I liked in the results is like the way to collaborate was interesting for a couple of people. Like we can go further into this a little bit later on, but like collective work was interesting. Art stacks were also interesting. And also explore new hybrid identities. So this is something which is also staying with me, and not only NFT, not NFT. That's why we talk about NFT in the report, but it's not really the huge part. It is one of the part, yeah.
Okay, I want to move to a more positive part of this talk, because, yeah, why not? We have been talking a lot about, we talked about ecology, social dimensions of into the business model. And when we were preparing this session with the other partners of Container that I mentioned before, Yadrana said something that I really, really liked, so that I want to bring back to the table. She talked about these mission-driven companies. So basically, those are companies that are not driven by pure productivity and rationalization, but actually they integrate an ecological and social dimension in all their actions. And what she said, that it's really nice, is that everyone is very concerned with greenwashing, pinkwashing, blah, blah, blah washing. And that if you're doing something good, if you're doing something to boost your sustainability, your ecological sustainability, you need to put an emphasis on it. It needs to be seen everywhere. We need to have posters of it everywhere. But it's not that if you say you're doing something, it doesn't mean that you're actually doing it, and vice versa. And what she said is, it's that in these mission-driven companies, since ecological and social dimension are integrated in the values and in the strategy actually of everything of the company, your stakeholders will understand what you're doing because they know your values, they know what you think about it, and you know how you move forward. So yeah, maybe that's also a model we can look at when we innovate and trying to do something new. And something else that I really like when we talk about being idealistic is collaboration. What if this could work? What happens if culture and corporate and businesses collaborate? Can we instill an artistic vision and ethics into business or not? Chloé, how can we adapt our work, your work, how do you adapt your work to the business world?
So I think, of course, it is a good collaboration. I think if you are an artist or a designer, you think in a certain way, and you're able to make connections that maybe business people or corporate world or other kinds of worlds cannot connect. So I think in every sector, it's actually quite interesting to work with a more creative person. I think for the creative person, then it's very important to maintain your own vision and your style or your way of working, and not to become one of their employees. So really keeping that in mind, because sometimes you can forget like yourself in that process, I think. And I think for like a corporate world or a scientist, also allowing them to maybe that an artist or a designer can teach you something, the same way that we take a lot of inspiration from their work. So I think in order to get an actual collaboration and not an exchange of things, it's really important that that you become equal. Because you're not a better person if you are a scientist or a really good businessman than an artist. It's just a different kind of job, you know, or a different kind of looking at the world. And they all have very interesting and valuable skills to learn to each other. And well, how we do that, yeah, it really depends. Sometimes it's well. I don't really like the super practical stuff. So if a product developer asks me, can you think about a different shape of a meat replacer, then I'm like, no, thank you. That is just a job I would never take, because I know myself and that's not something I'm interested in. But if, for example, companies, for example, who are now creating functional protein from bacteria, so microbial biomass, that is something that is also being developed right now, and it's a super sustainable, interesting and way of creating a protein. This kind of new food ingredients, they need to be like turned into something we actually want to eat. So what you basically see is this division between the functional ingredients, so the feeding of the body, and the sensorial elements, so the taste, the shape, the texture, the way we eat it, but also the cultural side of food and eating. And that is something I think it's perfect for a designer or a creative person to work with this company as a collaborator in shaping this future food into something people actually want to eat, and doing this together with with the consumer as well. So yeah, I see so many useful scenarios in which you combine these skill sets and these different ways of working. Yeah.
Mario, what's your insight about this?
Well, generally speaking, about the idea that the collaborations between the artists and private sectors could work, I believe that maybe us could be one of the examples that it can actually work. And I also find it, for us, when I'm talking from the point of view of a festival or an organizer, I really do believe that we can have this role of a mediator in between the private sector and the artists. And I also believe that one of the reasons why it works, because we know the artists, we work with them for many, many years. We know that they want to keep their integrity, they have their values, and we really do know how to approach this. At the same time, we do understand how the business people think, how the companies think, so we can create this really good bridge between these two worlds, and this has shown to be pretty effective, and it has worked very well for us. And also from my experience, I have to say that I don't really think that private brands or organizations are these evil corporates all the time who just want to exploit the artists and make money out of them. Over the past years, I can see this trend where actually the brands or companies, they really are trying to keep the artist's integrity and the values and their expression on the first place. It's basically, it's also part of their identity, how they work with the artists, how they communicate, how they lead the whole process. So it happens less and less that the companies would be pushing artists somewhere where they don't want to go. So I also think that there is still this kind of a stigma on this collaboration between the private world and the artist, and I really feel like it has shifted a bit, and it's moving really good direction. It's every time. At the end of the day, the artists and the private companies are always happy about the collaborations. It's just about being able to create this bridge and be able to address the needs that each side needs. And I think that there is always a space for that, and it really can work.
So you really need to find this win-win situation
Yes.
where the artist has a place to grow,
Yes.
and maybe analyze, rethink
Yeah.
their artistic language, and the business can develop a new idea, maybe have a new. I mean, it's the occasion also to have a new creative mind in their team. So yeah, that would be a very ideal win-win situation.
Yes, and I do believe that it is not as difficult as it might seem.
Well, thank you for this very positive conclusion to it. Élodie, do you have anything to add, given your position?
Yes, because we are not only support company, but also artists, and especially musicians, and they are more and more constrained to develop a career as a slasher. So they work with company oftenly. They are a slasher because they work to create a musical pieces for theater, but also for an advert, for example, or to work in the eventual field. It's not exactly the same that the cultural fields. And the collaboration could be sometimes not easy to deal, because they are still questioning their own value, but it's also a way to find the resources to produce their own artistic pieces with more possibility to take risks. So yes, it's important, but I'm not an artist, so it's difficult to talk about this for them, but we also accompany that, especially in terms of the frame of the contract, because when we are an artist and you work with a private company, they are not the company are not still aware about all the rights and all this stuff, and the contractualization is still something complicated.
And how come that the digital art is particularly well placed for collaboration? Because everyone has talked about collaboration today, so we can make this assumption that this sector is in a really nice place to collaborate. Why is that? Yes, AC?
Yeah, I think it is already in the name. It has to do with technology and digital media, and the arts. So not necessarily every artist is really well versed. So it was also something which had to do with the collaboration between an artist and somebody who would know, you know. I mean, look at what's happening with AI now. So there are a lot of people actually giving like classes, courses, like how to do this and how to do that, because an artist would not necessarily know. On the other hand, a technologist would say also like, oh, I see what you're doing with your art, and actually, oh, how can we reproduce this, or how can I support this, or how can I accelerate this? Also, it's interesting. So per se, it's already something hybrid. The field digital art is hybrid per se, so it is mixing different perspectives, and it's also something that you can see in the business models. I would say also, I would argue, but yeah.
Anyone else?
Well, when talking about a collaboration between the private sector and the artistic world, I believe that the reachability is a big plus for the digital art, because you can do large-scale projections, screens, small screens, mobile phones. It can be very easily shared. So I would say it's a perfect medium for collaborations with private companies, because there is basically this endless reach that they could reach through digital art. And also, when talking about the collaboration as an artistic process, it gives us really huge possibilities when it comes to inviting various artists from different parts of the world working on different elements of the digital artwork. We have loads of experiences when one artist creates sound and one artist who is on the different part of the world creates the visuals, and another artist can mix the whole thing together, and it really brings up the collaborations that wouldn't be possible in a physical world. So for us, it's really a source for endless possibilities, basically.
I think also in terms of business model, that is very interesting because it's very scalable. So the scalability is really good, and it's actually something we are trying to do now with Culinaire Cellulaire as well. Because in Europe we can sort of ship it or bring it or drive it somewhere, the installation. So it's a touchscreen and a holographic display, but it's also software. So if you separate the hardware from the software, and we are now having a pilot with it's called Lawrence Hall of Science in Berkeley in America, and we are separating the software from the hardware and the physical models. So basically we created a manual how to build the hardware part and the casing. So we only have to send the software, which is basically the artwork, and the prototypes, or like the physical models. So that is something we are testing to see if it works, because if it does work, we can also send it to other countries. Like I would love to see our installation in Singapore in this beautiful Lotus building, like this white art science museum, for example, or like the science museum network. I think that would be super interesting. But so far that was impossible for us also to scale our work, because it had all these different components. So it was like both physical and digital. And now we are trying to see if they can do it themselves, if we help them build the casing and stuff. So we are very curious to see. But yeah, before it was difficult.
And let's look at the idealistic part is over now. Let's look back at reality. Because if you are collaborating with business, how do you avoid falling into a liberal model where the artist is actually producing what the business wants? So what if philanthropy is going to replace the public sector? So culture is going to become based on the interest of the wealthiest. What part of the cultural sector and your cultural organization could be at risk? How can we avoid that? Mario, I see. Maybe you have some insight on that.
Well, I mean, there are so many different ways actually to get on this independency, and at the same time, this is exactly what I was saying before. Are you independent or you're not independent? And from the moment you are not producing with your own money and doing your own thing, you are dependent on something anyway, right? So what I find really interesting is the search for this independency at some point in the terms you are negotiating with the collaborators you are working with. So what we can see in terms of new business models, I mean, well, it's not really new. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, we've been doing this for a couple of years, so it's not really new. But I think tech companies as art patrons, and it doesn't have to be Google, right? It could be a little software company, even a hidden champion. It can be an event space, and who's providing also some technology, and then you have already some kind of a tech company as an art patron. It can be also a collaboration between various cultural institutions also. So you have many partners, and this is also more independent because you don't depend only on one partner, on one commercial partner. You can bring different kinds of institutions also. I like very much what you said before in terms of what can we scale things technology and the digital place, I think there are a couple of platforms that we could observe, like La Collection or Das Verse. Das Verse is actually from Korea, but I think they are bridging the real world with the digital world. And I don't know if you remember, but during our process of research, we were inviting an agency also trying to actually find the blueprint of certain stuff in the real world to make it also hybrid. So that's why it was really well resonating what you were saying before, Chloé. I think it was really interesting. And then to bring it on a marketplace and really scale the marketplace, also something which is interesting. So we saw a lot of digital and decentralized autonomous organizations, obviously. We saw a lot of art stacks also. And I would argue like Drift or Team Lab, that kind of art stacks which are really interesting, are producing massive scale exhibitions right now, which even gave a real shift in the visibility of digital art, like huge exhibitions certainly. And I think also it can be very more independent because they're really bypassing the regular institutions actually exhibiting digital art. So I think this is a way to, like try something and do something out of that. And on the whole, I would say like everything we could see in our research phase, which was hybridizing the experience, was interesting. Like how do you get out of the physical, how do you go into the digital, but also how do you bring it back from digital to real, I mean in an experience space so that it's still human and not completely like digitalized. And I think this is something that the audiences want. They are sick of, after all the pandemic stuff, they are sick of all digital. They need the experience, so you need the whole thing around it. And this also brings a lot of value. Yeah.
And so if I come back to this, businesses deciding what the artists are going to produce, maybe are there some safeguards that we can put in place? Maybe should we establish ethical rules? Should we make all artists sign an interprofessional charter? What do you think, Chloé?
You want the artist to sign something, maybe better that the businesses sign something.
All right, that's another perspective.
Because otherwise, like often then the artist or the designer becomes more of like the creative agency, like advertisement. Then they just use it, greenwashing we already mentioned, or pinkwashing or whatever. You're becoming like the advertisement agency. So the design or the art is often then used to, I don't know, like advertise this company or this brand, or it's like a gadget, like a gimmick, something cool, something temporary. But then you again underestimate the value of if you bring the designer or the artist in this whole creative process. They can do so much more than think about a creative advertisement or something. So I think it's in the DNA of how collaborations might have been in the past. That is just, it should change. But I agree with Mario that I think things are changing a bit. So I think the creatives are being valued a bit more already. And I think it's also our own standpoint. So we should say we're not going to work for minimum wage anymore. It's ridiculous. Everybody gets paid, or the producer, the waiter, everybody, the cleaning lady. Why not the artist? Ridiculous. We are here because of the art, for example, or the design. So anyway, I think things are changing, but it's also something that the creatives should stand up for themselves as well and say no to unpaid work, no to doing things that their advertisement agency could also do for them. Know what you are worth and what you can bring to the table. It's valuing yourself and your work and just not being afraid to say no to ridiculous questions. So yeah, I think it starts with valuing yourself.
Sure. I would like to bounce on this because I think it's great what you said, okay, why not the businesses doing this, but also why not the art institutions themselves, which is the field we were working on. And actually we did that with having on our team the sustainability officer, so to speak, and taking sustainability also as a social, ethical, ecological also, but the social part was a big thing. I mean, like the condition of work was really super interesting to check and to commit. And then it was great in a collaborative process to have them commit on a kind of a manifesto and say, this is what we're going to do. And this you can even see online if you're interested. It's really interesting, yeah.
And this this back off, because the back off is the people behind any project. We've been talking about this a lot in the project. We haven't today but I mean there would be so many topics to talk about that we don't have the time, the physical time today. But it's for one thing that I wanted to say is that artists are asked to be a lot of things. There has to be creatives. There has to be the buffer in between different disciplines. There has to be a lot. But are we thinking about who is actually doing the job? As you said, Chloé, we need to value ourselves. We need to understand the value that we bring to the table. We need to start paying the cultural workers well. That sounds pretty right, no? So yeah, that's also something that we should start advocate for sure. All right. Well, we have been here for quite some time. We have said many things and left many things to say yet. If I can just close this nice session with 3 key takeaways, my personal takeaways. Please don't be afraid to address the elephant in the room. Let's talk about the problem and find a solution, please. Second, let's cooperate. Cooperation is the key. And the third one is a quote from Rebecca Minkoff that I found online that I really like. You can be both creative and profitable. It's not a contradiction, it's a necessity.
Nice.
Thank you so much for this
Thanks
session.
To you,
it was
Ilaria.
very nice, and see you soon.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.